guess you can see for yourself. Edwin, can you see it?
Yeah.
Okay. So please, you could take over.
I see it. All right. Thank you, Priscilla. Actually, I'm happy with the vote anyways. I thought I'll have miserable results here. So I can see, yeah, majority of people, well, they don't have challenges, and I love that. And that's the main reason I'm here to, by the end of the month, I presume everyone should be loving it. We should have minor people. So basically, I want to point out some few essentials in the open project. First off, I would like to start that, the old way we used to log tax deep funding has evolved. Primarily, the old way was mostly used to request for payment, to log your hours and request for payment. But we have shifted from that modulus operandi, and we are moving into a more of a tax management process whereby people, what do you call it, have visibility on others' tax. The whole circle has visibility of what tax is going on, who is doing what stage a tax in, and all those kind of process. And we just added the logging of hours as an addition to the tax, what do you call it, management system, so that it will be like a whole tool that you don't need to go log your tax elsewhere. You can do that after, what do you call it, the tax has been done. So to further simplify things, we added more notifications to it. That's what do you call it? Once a tax is assigned to you, it literally notifies you in your Mattermost. Once you are done with the tax and you change the status of the tax, it moves. Once you move it to done, it notifies the coordinator to go review the tax and audit the tax. So I think the old habit was sort of, we pile the tax, and once it's time for let's say payment is Tuesday and the end date is near, we all go log our tax and expect the coordinator to perform miracles by auditing before Thursday, right? So the tax is it's part of us. Every day we are executing tax. We don't need to wait till it's Wednesday before we log in a tax. The moment you assign a tax, you can literally start logging in what the tax is about, your process and everything. So if we follow it sequentially, that process, I think by the time you get to Wednesday, everything is in order. I don't think you need to do too much, except the tax that was done is on that particular Wednesday. Now, to further simplify things, we thought of some new features as well, and some of you might know it, some of you have not noticed it yet. We looked at the recurring tax. So basically, we analyzed all the tax and we saw, well, most of the tax are recurring. It's some tax that it's a one-off tax. So we took it into consideration and we implemented a recurring tax. Now, what does this thing do? So if you log a tax once, and what do we call it? It's a recurring tax. By recurring, it doesn't mean it happens every week. It can be bi-weekly, monthly, half yearly, even yearly. A yearly tax, that means every year that tax happens. It's still a recurring tax. So if it's a recurring tax, you just take that button and what do we call it? You don't need to ever log that tax again. Once the tax is processed for payment, the system just recreates the tax back for you and you just run it through the process all over again. So it will be doing that so long as the recurring button is still active. And that should help people to, what we call it, to help people for less logging of tax, and we concentrate more on the work. So that's one thing I wanted to point out, the recurring tax. And for challenges, well, we've lined the IT support. Any form of challenge that you have, you can literally throw it back to us and we'll solve it. One frequent challenge that came, hold on, let me just share this image so that present my screen and share this. So let's share this. Let's see. Okay, I hope my screen is visible. Let me just. Is my screen visible?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Okay, so literally these are the status of the the Kanban board that every circle has. I'm going to quickly run through it. So in pending, that's where the tax starts. It starts in pending right here. And once it's moved to new, meaning it's been accepted to the circle, ready to be worked on. Then you move it into progress when the tax is ongoing. Once you are done, now, once the tax is assigned to you at new, it's going to alert you at your Mattermost that you have been assigned a tax, so you can move it into progress. Once we have the on hold and rejected. If the tax is in progress and there's some sort of blocker that is preventing the tax from going on, you can just move it to hold so that it can be there whilst things are being figured out. But once everything is okay with the tax from the assignee side, the person moves it to done. Now, once you move it to done, it's going to literally alert the coordinator or whoever is in charge of auditing to come check the tax and then audit the tax. So once everything is good in the auditing, the coordinator or the person in charge moves the tax from done to audited, right? Then that is literally the end of the member and the coordinator ends there. So we have a bot running frequently at the back end. Now this bot literally checks all audited tax, right, from the coordinator. It checks all the fields. We have a checklist. I posted it in the IT support page. We have a list of terms that a tax needs. It checks everything to make sure it's correct. Once it ticks, then it's process it for payment. Then it archives that particular tax for reference and any other stuff. So if it's unable to verify the tax due to one more reason, there's an error in some of the field, it simply rejects it from moving to archive, then it sends the tax back to done. Once it sends the tax back to done, it's the coordinator again gets, I think you get a notification to recheck the tax again. And if the member needs to do something on the tax or correct something, then you can do it. Once that is done, you can move it back to audited. When this bot runs again, it's going to check. If everything is good, it's going to move it to archived. If there's an error, it moves back. So it will remain in this loop unless the problem is fixed. So if it moves it to archive, there's one last thing the bot does. It checks if the tax is a recurring tax. If it is a recurring tax, it's going to move the tax, it's going to archive the tax, process it for payment, and then move the tax back to pending. I mean, it's literally recreates the tax, not the same tax. It's a similar tax with a different ID, but it's the same tax that you are doing. It's going to move it back to pending. Then you can restart the flow again, meaning next week or anytime the tax, is going to happen. So I think this flow should, answer most questions. One last thing. So the request for payment, I've had various questions over there. So once the tax is in archived and has processed for payment, in the database, yeah, the funding is owing you. You have a payment over there. But that doesn't mean you'll be automatically be paid. We need a request for payment, which there's a form. I think the operations can give you that form. I think almost all coordinators have. Yeah, Rafael.
Yeah, thank you, man. Yeah, and thank you for pushing for these recurring tasks. As you discussed, it's very important. The thing that I see here is only the archived ones they only happen when it's paid, right? The task is paid. And this recurrency can be, for instance, daily. Let's say that we have social media posts every day. We are not going to process the payment. So if we only make the task recurrent and create a new one or pending after the payment, then we won't have this task recurring properly because it's daily. Well, a potential solution here is for, as we discussed it before, to use the like Google Calendar. So you put there daily, bi-weekly, or every Thursday, and so on, and then it creates by that time, I would say, because this after payment to create a recurring task, sending a new one to pending might be problematic, if I understood correctly what you are saying.
The reason why there won't be any problem is once the tax is archived, right? In the database, we have a list of paid tax. I think the by default it will be unpaid unless a request for payment comes in. So all archived tax has two status: paid and unpaid. Yeah. So if it's recreated, as literally the system is recreating the tax but with different IDs. So you can have, let's say, all hands. It's a recurring task. So this week, all hands will be, let's say, ID1. If it's recreated, the next one is going to be ID2. The next one is going to be ID3. And you can have the same tax being unpaid for at archived, meaning at the back end, you have 3 tax, it's unpaid for, but what do you call it? You can keep doing that tax all and over.
I guess my point was how the system knows the frequency, for instance, knows the frequency of that task. Do you have a specific?
There's literally no frequency, but this is the catch. If you create a tax, you literally put the start date and the end date, right? So once the system recreates the tax, it's going to use basically those future dates to recreate that tax. Now, it's upon you, once the tax is created, that doesn't mean all fields are blocked. You can literally rechange, what do you call it? The date to any date you want. I mean, the future date, if you feel the tax won't, what do you call it? Won't start, let's say, on that particular date, but it starts on the next date, you can change the time on your own. The only thing is the recurrent will just recreate the tax for you again. And if you feel all the fields are good, you can go on. And if you want to stop the recurring, it's just by unchecking the button. Once you uncheck the button and what do you call it, the system runs again, the tax won't be created again.
Okay, let's see it working. I don't want to hijack the call for that, and let's see if it goes properly. Thank you. Thank you.
Sure. Okay, so I think so the request for payment doesn't happen automatically once a tax is archived in the system. You need to fill out the form for request for payment. If you don't request, perhaps some will like monthly, some will like weekly, some, I don't know what do you call it, the preference for each user. But we literally need to request for payment using a form so that your payments can be processed. The system is not going to automatically do that for you. Yeah, I think Ego, that would be for my presentation, and I'm open to questions.
Okay, hi Edwin. So I would like to know how the payment for bonuses are, done through open projects.
Okay, so for the bonus, that will be a question for the operations. Open projects doesn't handle bonuses. I think there's a whole process around bonuses.
Okay, go on the board.
Yeah. After the task is audited, it goes to operations, to the operations circle, and then we realize we make some auditings, additional ones, checking further, and the payment occurs via the operations system that we have. It generates a CSV with the addresses and the amount in tokens, which goes through another system for payment in AWS. Then it goes from the wallet, Deep Funding wallet, towards the wallets of members and also awarded teams.
Is your question answered, Mr. Ayabwafo?
Yes, it's been adequately answered. Thank you.
We are also updating some of these processes with the smart contracts, for instance. So soon we will have more info to share about this.
Okay, Judith, please, you could unmute and go ahead.
Thank you. Hi, Edwin. So is
Hello,
there
Judith.
anywhere in the system where I can see the dollar amount that is being paid out? I can see my hours at I don't know, there's like some view where I can see my total hours from the past. But while I'm creating the task, is there anywhere where I can see the dollar amount that's gonna be paid out from all the circles that I'm part of in the next payment?
Can you rephrase your question? I didn't get it entirely correct.
If I may,
So
Edwin,
in the last
Okay.
Judith,
in
yeah,
the last payment system we used, when we entered our task, right, there was a little tab at the top of the sheet that showed us the dollar amount, the US dollar amount that we're going to get paid in the next payout. So it would calculate from all the circles, all the tasks, everything, and you would see the total amount that will be paid in US dollars, which then in our wallet, it shows up in HIX or FET. But currently, when I open my wallet, I just see a random amount in FET. I don't really know what that is in US dollars. For example, this week or last week, we have requested some extra payments for the flights to Geneva. And now I've gotten paid last week. I have no idea if these flights are included because I don't know what dollar value, I don't know at what rate this FET has been sent, and I don't know the dollar value that I have been paid out to begin with, to be honest. Is there any way where I can see the dollar value that I was paid in this payment?
Judith, solid point. Yes, it's important for you guys to know where is this payment coming from, right? And for which circle and potentially even which task. We do have this internally in the operation system, operations.deepfunding, but not everyone has access to what's being paid. So it's a good point for us to also develop, Edwin. Not sure if the task system will be the ideal because we are developing this operation system with Rojo. Not sure if Rojo is here to give some input. But yes, the idea is to have this in a more transparent way, not only for the person itself, but also for the community, because we are transparent to the community as well as we have this responsibility and accountability with them. So yeah, but it's not something developed at this point, Judith. Well, we have, but it's not open.
That the operation circle could send a quick note either by hand or automated that just says it has been paid out at this rate, like the FET has been paid today at this rate, or this is the rate that the FET rate at least, because I can't even calculate if the amount that I'm receiving is proper because I don't know what rate it's been paid at. The FET rate.
As a rule,
the opening day
we
of the rate,
pay
closing day.
as a rule. Okay, as a rule, the payment since 1 year ago, we pay with the average of the previous day. In this case, FAT value, right? So, but it's not clear which for you. It's not clear which is what's the amount. We can perhaps send in the same message that we send notifications in the Mattermost channel. We can send also, hey, this was the value or of the fact that we use it. We use Coinbase as the main parameter for that. But this is
Yeah, that would be
something that we can solve quickly. Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be amazing. So at least I can myself can do then the calculation of what dollar amount has been
As
received in a
now,
wallet.
what we can do as well for you to have this, we have the operations support channel. If you have such a request, willing to know what was paid, for instance, in your case, you had, and yes, it was paid, the tickets and etc. So just drop a message there requesting this, and then we can provide to you that are in doubt about what was that, like a kind of an invoice for you guys.
Yeah. Thank you. But if in the future that could somehow be visible by default, that would be amazing.
Yeah, as I mentioned, the system that are coming, it's going to have, and you're going to access everything there. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so there is a question in the chat. Someone is asking, can an archive tax be audited by the assigned person? Don't know if this has been answered. So Edwin, please, if you could answer this.
No, an archive tax can't be edited. It's locked.
Okay, so please hope your question is answered. Or can you raise your hand so that because it looks like you are changing the question. Well, okay. So any other questions? If not, we continue.
Oh, I'm sorry, I meant, can it be edited? Can an archived task be edited? Yeah, not audited.
Okay.
No.
The assigned person. Okay.
An archive task can be edited.
Okay, great. It's good it has been answered. Okay. So next on the agenda, Jan will give us a little presentation. Jan?
All right, where are we? CRISP, yeah. So we went through a number of iterations there and decision making, and at the end we said, well, this might take a while before we reach a final conclusion. Let's see if we can have an intermediate solution, because people are already submitting ideas and proposals, and they have been waiting for more than 2 months already, and there's still no process in place and inside even to start selecting. So we should we are obliged to the people that have submitted ideas to bring some speed into this process. Then the idea was suggested to, there were a number of options to speed this up, and I think the final idea was that the consensus was that Rafael and me should just select a few people to get this started while we're in this decision process, and then we can use it as a temporary solution and then figure out how to continue later on. So that was about 2 weeks ago, I think. And what we did in that time, maybe it was even 3 weeks ago, what we did in that time, we figured that before making a selection, we should look a little bit closer at, wait a minute, I'm going to change something on my screen here. Yeah, all right. We should think a little bit deeper about the process. Because who you want to choose depends on how you see the process, and maybe also there was an outcome of the decision process that we saw happening and the ideas we already saw coming in. So what we did here, we defined a process. We detailed it a little bit, and we figured that maybe we needed 2 steps in this process. So CRISP, by the way, is, does it say here? It's the core reputation. Oh yeah, there are core RFP ideation selection panel. That's what it stands for. So the CRISP is in charge of selecting the best ideas that are proposed by our community members, and to define which ideas will make it to an RFP. And then at the end of that process, an RFP will be allocated with a budget. And that can be quite significant. So that budget can be quite high. So the job from this CRISP is also very important, which is why we're going through such a thorough process also in selecting the CRISP. Now we figured that for this CRISP, it would be very hard to select 100, 200, 300 ideas every month. And probably a lot of ideas that are being submitted in the first place aren't, not all of them are equally good. Maybe some of them can be filtered out pretty quickly. So we figured that we'll do it in 2 stages. First, we have a rotating group of people that will do the first selection. And then the CRISP will come and do the final selection of proposals. And the way we saw this happening, we can gamify that a little bit. We can say to CRISP people, let's imagine that we would have 5 people. And these people would be able to, each of these people would be able to give a star to the ideas that are being submitted that they like best. And then at some point we can say, well, if a project has, for instance, 3 stars, then it will be submitted and it will go through the next phase where the CRISP will make their final selection. We can play around with this a little bit. We can just do it like this and see what happens. Or we can say each of these people will have, for instance, 15 stars every month to give to projects. And if we do it that way, we already are limiting the number of ideas that can be passed on to the next stage where the CRISP will make their final decision. So we have some tools to work and to throttle the number of ideas that will make it to the desk of the actual CRISP panel. Then the CRISP itself, we will have 5 people there, as mentioned before. That was an outcome of the previous decision process. There will be, the way we see it today, is that there will be 3 stages. So also there we might filter for impact and uniqueness, making sure that an idea is not already being funded, for instance, somewhere else in our program. And that there's an actually need for it in the market. Then the second one, which is probably more time intense, would be review it for technical feasibility. And then the idea is that all these people will come together and look at it more holistically and say, okay, we have now filtered out these projects. If we look at it from a distance and put all our minds together, which ones are the best? So that's how we currently see this CRISP operating. It might be, and this will be up to the CRISP themselves, that after a week or a month or 3 months, they will find a better way of doing this. It also depends on how many ideas will land on that desk, which is dependent on the first step. So there are a lot of variables here, a lot of variations possible, but we believe that in this way it would be a manageable process with an optimal outcome. Should the CRISP make this selection, and for instance, at the end of the month, let's say that they do this monthly, there would still be 10 projects that are all equally good or all good enough, then there's the option of having a third step. A third step there is where we could ask all circles, or even the wider community or a reputation-based group of individuals, and say, here are 10 ideas that we all like, they're all good, but now you can decide which are the ones that should actually become an RFP. So that's the third step. And yeah, we need to figure out what the shape of this funnel is, how many will go to the second step. If there are only a few to the second step, then maybe this third step isn't necessary anymore. If there are a lot in the second step, then maybe it would be cool to have this third step as well and have a wider input of people giving their opinion. So you see, so first let me give you this overview site. It has nice pictures, so this is much better. We have this first group that makes the rough schedule, so there will be a lot of noise there. There will be a lot of ideas that aren't well articulated, that are duplicates that we've seen before, that are not original or clearly infeasible. So they will filter those out. Then there's this crisp, making the real assessment based on impact and technical feasibility and ethical dimension as well. And then potentially we'll have the circle members doing a vote. At the end, when the idea has been promoted to an actual RFP and a number of RFPs have been created, there's still an option for another selection process in determining which RFPs will be prioritized or which will be allocated with a budget. Maybe at the beginning of the process, we think this is a 20K project, and when it comes out of the RFP process, it's suddenly 200K project. Well, then we might still think differently about whether we actually want to publish it. We have a process in mind for that as well, which is also a little bit gamified, looks a little bit like that first step. Due to time, I won't go into that right now. Also, don't want to overload you with too much information. So, the interesting observation here is that this process, this decision, would never have come out of the decision process that we went through before. So the decision process in Lumio had some rigidity baked into it, based on the question that we asked and the options that we had in the answer. So whether this is a good or not a good process, that is to be determined. But I do know that with the current setup of Lumio, this was probably not an outcome that we would have had if we would have continued that process, or we would have had it after a very long time. So that's an observation in itself about decision making. And yeah, maybe it can give us some inspiration on how we want to make decisions like this going forward. Now, the next step. So this is the process. And then, of course, the interesting part is, what are the names that we put to this process? Now, before I give you the names, they're on the next slide. I want to share a little bit of the challenge that we experienced here. We think the CRISP is extremely important because they will, at the end of the day, be deciding about a large part of the budget, how it will be allocated, to which projects it will be allocated. So our initial idea was we want to have the most valued contributors in our program and the most valued experts in our program in the CRISP. However, we found out very quickly that these are also the people, often, not always, but often, that are also already stretched, overburdened, already in 2 circles or more, and we didn't want to put something else on their lap, on top of all the responsibilities that they already had. So we still wanted to have high qualified people, but we're also looking for people that actually have some time and availability and are not getting too many responsibilities within the program. So, having said that, here are the results. Oh, why is that not working? Okay. The first rotating group, we're still debating a little bit how we want to do that. I imagine at some point we'll have some, maybe a form where we'll open that up for any candidate who would like to do that, and we'll figure out, if there are enough candidates, we'll figure out a rotating scheme, and everybody can be part of that. We might do the first selection to get it going, because this is really the first thing we could get started with, and then probably Rafa, Paulo, this will be a selection of people from the review circle if we really want to do it quickly. Or we might open up that forum really fast. I don't know. We'll probably let you know one of these days. Then the actual CRISP team. We found these wonderful individuals available and prepared to take on this job. So it's Tommy, currently in the focus group, Riyadh in the development outreach circle, Giga and Sonny, both valued experts in the review circle, and Esther, who is already in our circle working on the decision process in our program, is now also in the CRISP team. And the CRISP team is a decision process in itself, but it also has an ethical component. So we don't want to overburden Esther here in this particular group, but we did think it was important to have this ethical component there as well. And at the same time, it's also decision-making in practice. So it is also a good combination. Giga and Sonny will still be guided by Paulo and Assad from the review circle. But yeah, these are, this is the CRISP team. This is the first temporary CRISP team. And I think the CRISP team itself, it will be the task of the CRISP team itself to have an opinion on this process that we thought. And if they see fit, they should be able to change it or to adapt it or to tweak it as they see fit. All in good discussion. Before I go on to the next, so this was the CRISP. The next topic would be clusters, and then we have labs. Before I continue, maybe a short pause for any questions, because we've been debating this for a long time. Any immediate questions right now? Otherwise, you can also save it for later on. Questions? No questions? Then we'll get on to the next one. We are growing as circles. Last time I looked, there were 91 people in the All Circles group. We are growing with a number of circles. I'll show it in the next slide. And at the same time, we wanted to keep the organization as flat as possible. But I think this whole decision-making thing on circles also showed that a flat organization isn't always the most effective organization. And I resisted also having multiple layers in the organization because I thought it would bring hierarchy. And we wanted to be decentralized, right? So we shouldn't have layers. So that's a kind of a conflict. Lately, I've been changing my opinion a little bit, because what I'm saying here, it's not the layers necessarily that make an organization hierarchical. I think it's more the direction of the information. So if we would have another layer, but the direction of the information is still bottom to top, then it can make us more effective without actually losing much of that decentralization, and still giving every person in the organization agency and engagement in decision making and all kinds of activities. So if we look at the circles, I used an old slide for this and I changed it a little bit. So at the top you see, well, first we started with 4 circles: marketing, review, awarded teams, and focus group. Awarded teams is the first circle that has ceased to exist. Maybe we'll revive it at some point, and would not be a bad thing, to be honest. But currently, let's say it's dormant at best. But at the same time, there are other circles emerging. So in the past, we saw events, developer outreach, and operations and analytics. We're already used to them. And more recently, there's IT and there's onboarding. And as emergent circles, there is business development and documentation, which might become a circle. And as I said, deep funding all circle, 91 people. Who would have thought? And it's great. It's a good thing. Each of these circles fulfills a purpose. Each of these circles add values. We are not creating circles because it's a hobby, because we want to have more circles. Each circle we create because there is a need for it. And that's the way how it should be. And maybe at some point we'll remove circles and we'll see other disappear. Maybe we'll get to some equilibrium where we have the perfect number and we'll leave it like that. But we'll see. So how do you work with this? So this is a question for me and Rafael. Do I want to be on weekly meetings with each circle? Well, I'm not doing that anymore. It's not feasible. Maybe Rafael will be, maybe together. So that's the communication framework there. We also had a very good example with the marketing circle. So what the marketing circles did, they started meetings with the three of them, the developer outreach circle, the event circle, and the what we call the marketing circle. You could say it's about the community. And they have weekly meetings together with the three of them. And we don't see that as an extra layer in the hierarchy. They don't build hierarchy, but they do make it easier to communicate, and therefore also make it easier for me and Rafa to communicate with all these circles. So what we are aiming at is a situation like this, where we want to create, oh, that's the wrong one. This looks a little bit, wait a minute, is this the right one? Yeah, it is the right one. No, this was the one I was looking for. So we want to have some clusters in circles. So we have here a good example of, we could call it community. We could give it a different name, but it's marketing, events, and outreach. There are a lot of circles that are combined under the domain of operations and review. They have a lot of overlap. So this is basically operations. This is what Rafa will be steering. It's reviews, operations, analytics, IT, onboarding, and potentially documentation when it becomes a circle. So these two clusters will also be guided heavily by Rafael. The other two, product and business development, there's a product team, but they are not circle members. Most of them are contracted. It's about 10 people currently. And we have business development, which is emerging, which is being led by Judith. And I have a lot of confidence that that will grow and become an important part as well. So we also put product and business development in one basket. Also because there is this part where community and operations is more community driven, and product and biz dev, there might become more like a profit angle there for deep funding. So that's why we also separate it. If we're working with partners, we'll ask them for a fee that might give us some income. There's a lot of product things like escrows and backend information and so on that is also closely related there. The fourth thing is governance. It's small, currently focus group and the decision-making initiative led by Esther. We'll see how that will emerge. Maybe it's not the largest one in terms of number of circles, but it's a very important part of our program and how we want to see the program mature. Going back to the previous one. So this is about the process. How do we create circles? We have a number of circles. We see a few new ones come on. This looks quite complex, this diagram, but it's actually quite easy. Each circle should start as a work group. So we start a work group, and when a work group is started, the work group can be initiated by us, by me or Rafael, because we feel we need it. A work group might also be initiated by circles, by you. If you think we have some very important topic and we believe we can make a work group around it, please. What we will do in both cases is make a kind of initiation document where we will have a template for that, but we will define what is the purpose, what are the timelines, when do we expect this work group will end, because a work group usually will have a beginning and an end. What are we aiming to do? Who will be part of the work group? When will it be successful? Those kind of questions. So work group by nature should be time restricted. So let's say we create a work group and we say after 3 months, they will have accomplished something. So either the work group after that period will be complete because they've made the decision that they needed to make, they made the outcomes or the process or whatever they needed to decide on, and there's a set of deliverables. That is the classic work group. Another option, what we see happening with the documentation work group, for instance, they started with that documentation process, but while doing that, they are figuring that maybe this is something that needs to be done ongoingly to some extent. So in that case, the work group might evolve into a circle. Same for BizDev. We try it out, we start it small. That means we can be a little bit less relaxed about all the conditions, but at some point when it becomes a circle, there are also the conditions of the circle. For instance, each circle needs to have 2 coordinators that will take care of the tasks and all of that. And we need 2 because we want to build in some resilience. If one of them will go away or is not available, that we always have another one to take over. Other option is that if after that set period, where it's a month or 3 months, the work group figures that they need more time or go deeper or whatever, there's also the option to go back to the first step and extend the life cycle of the work group. And maybe some work groups will remain a work group, but for a longer period of time. I believe there was a case for that. I forgot which one it was. How we will determine which initiatives for a work group will actually be honored is something to be determined. We don't have endless resources. We want to be conscious with the budget that we have at our disposal. So there will be some kind of decision process. For now, it will be Rafael, me. Maybe at some point when we get more experience with decision making within the larger program, we can experiment with other ways of doing that. Rafa.
Yeah, by the way, Jan, another entrance door here is also the community, right? We might have circles, staff, or even someone from the community that believes that, well, this circle is necessary and needed. So I would like to create this work group to create this structure. It also might be, I mean, when I say community, someone outside the circles and staff. As it was what happened with the documentation work group, when Anthony reached out to me and we started this process, he wasn't in a circle per se.
Yeah, we don't have all the wisdom, we don't have all the context, we don't see everything. Sometimes the information comes from another place. But if it's a good initiative, it's a good initiative, it's a good idea, we will work with it. Might also be that we have a circle that becomes bigger and then we will split it at some point, or we'll spin off one part and make that a work group until it becomes a circle. So there are different flows here.
Yeah, it's like happened with events from marketing and also operations from the review circle.
Yeah, good examples. Yeah. So that's how we evolve. But the idea is that we have two types of entities. They're mainly also administrative bodies. So one circle can be very different than another circle. We give each circle a lot of freedom. But in our backend automation system, you will be a circle and there will be two coordinators. And maybe there's another condition that I forgot right now, but those are the outlines. So it's an administrative entity. But the review circle is very different than the onboarding circle, to name something, or the marketing circle. With different processes, different sizes, different kind of meetings, but they're still circles. So this is Rafael. This is more governed by me, and we'll give this a place in our communication framework as well. So we're implementing that framework that Rafael created and shared with regular meetings, and we'll figure out exactly who will be in what meetings, but that's also something that has to establish itself over time. But I think for me personally, this level would be a great level to interact with all of you without necessarily needing to go to every single meeting to understand what is going on. Okay. That was a little bit of the administrative stuff. Now the exciting part. Before I go here, any questions on this part? Good. Oh, Paulo.
So this new structure, as I can say, that we start this month. We start right now.
Is that a question or a statement?
Yeah, no, it's a question. It's a question and a statement at the same time. It's like, are we starting?
Yeah, well, in part it has already started. So the marketing circle are already doing this for a while. I think the main thing here is that we need to put also the other things in the agenda, and then we'll start probably with a monthly meeting on this level. Rafa, when do you think?
I have allocated already the slots in the schedule, the calendar for each of these. We will start with a monthly call for each of these clusters on Tuesdays, but of course we can make different given the needs of each circle here.
Perfect.
You will be invited. It's in the documents.
I hope so. Thank you.
All right, let's go to the next topic. Oh, I'm already overrunning as usual. Anyway, this is the fun topic, deep funding labs. A playground and meeting space for builders. Let me see what is let me start with this nice generated image of what the labs could be. For us, it will be a virtual environment, not a real room. But the question is, what if we had an online environment where builders can meet, exchange ideas, experiment, and learn from each other? I think it would be a great thing to have. It also ties into our secondary purpose, a goal of making a community of builders. And what we would do there is first work on tools that support deep funding. We are already working on a number of those tools. So we have the AI-based review assistant. We also were working in terms of ideation filters, and if we could use AI to do, for instance, pair voting or ordering of proposals. So some of these things have already started. And we're now merging them into this labs concept. But after we've done that, we can also grow that concept and make it bigger. So we can start with tools that support deep funding, but we can also experiment with services on the platform and agents. We can maybe in the future make proof of concepts for a partner if they want to work on an RFP, but we are not sure what should be in there, or we want to give it a first test spin to know if it's feasible and give the partner an idea of what would be feasible. We could use it for that as well. And maybe the most exciting thing, if we get this going and get working, we can also use it as a playground to start working with the tech from SingularityNet. Have teams work with Meta and have teams work with PLN and all those other great technologies. So this is why I also needed to explain you a little bit about those clusters, because yeah, Rafael had some and others had some talks about what is labs for and what should be the scope of labs. And I think it would be a great place that can tie all of these clusters together. So we already talked about review assistant, right? So that is what can be done in labs. Well, product and BizDev, for BizDev, we'll have other things that we want to test on. Community and governance. Governance is a good topic here. Things like voting and reputation, how do we work with that? Do we want to have a new voting portal? We're doing an experiment, or we're preparing an experiment on different voting methods to see which one works best. And maybe, so that would also be another topic that could be added in labs. Also, it doesn't necessarily have to be software. We could also have labs for creating a framework, an ethics framework, or a process, or whatever, or some visual. Work with generative AI on marketing or whatever. Maybe we could put that in the deep funding labs as well. But I think it would be a middle playground where also different people from these different areas can meet. One other upside I see in this labs thing is the review circle. The review circle is growing, and I'm very happy that it's growing in size with the number of people. It's also growing in quality. There are more high qualified people coming in, and that's great. However, what do we do with these people in between rounds? There are moments that there aren't many RFPs out there and there isn't a new round. There's still milestone approvals, but maybe we don't need all the people for milestone approvals every week. So it would be great if we could also have these people work with their community and in the labs, and then maybe they could help build tools, maybe they could help build stuff for partners. Maybe we could do that based on the SingularityNet technology and get also these review circle more embedded in our community and in contact with our tech stack. So this is where this next picture comes in. We have the SingularityNet tech stack that we could embed in labs, and we have the wider deep funding community. So maybe not just the review circle, maybe there are awarded teams that they hear about labs. They want to get their hands on some of that tech. They want to learn, work with it. And they know there are some people in the labs environment that have worked with Meta before, that have worked with PLN, that have worked with distributed atom space. And they can work together and mix their experience and expertise and build great stuff. So yeah, this is another one. How this ties into the bigger process. So labs can also, so we talked about CRISP. There's ideation, which is a test in itself. And we can also position the labs in this whole process from idea, the whole community-driven RFP process. So we will have a website. I'm not sure if everybody is aware of that. We will create a website called AI for Peace. We have done a dualathon on AI for Peace. We've had a challenge on AI for Peace, and we like the topic so much that we want to give it more visibility and do more with it. We will want to make it in a kind of brand, sub-brand of deep funding in itself. So it will probably be a separate, or it will be a separate website, because we think that way we can bring the message across best and we can get most attention. And that website will be a funnel. And the best ideas that are selected to be appropriate, to be RFP candidates, those ideas will land on the Deep Funding website. And it can be that, remember that first group, that rotating panel that would put these stars, it could be these people that will work on that website and say, hey, here's a great idea that I would like to see become an RFP. And then if we have 3 stars there, it will be ported to the Deep Funding portal. But some of these ideas may not be mature enough. Some of these ideas we may not have a clue on how they will work in real life. So it might need some testing. And this is also where the labs can come in. Or maybe when we are creating the RFP itself and actually developing it, we'll find out that we need some experiment. So then the RFP development team can reach out to the labs and say, hey, could you please figure out this for me? Or could you please test this out for me? Or could you please give us a direction here and give some feasible, tangible result that we can put in our RFP? So I think the labs section can also be very useful in that whole RFP development process. Again, a place where it will bring where we will bring ideators and builders together. So let me see. So here we connect the 4 clusters. In the next, we are saying we also connect the community and the SingularityNet tech stack. And here, labs will function as a way to bring the ideators and the builders together in one environment. And then if you take the full picture, there will be inflow. And this is like 2 years from now, right? This is not something that will be tomorrow. But maybe circles will request things. We plan the workshop, but we'll do that another moment where we'll ask every one of you, do you have ideas? Do you have ideas that you would like to see being developed and tested and experimented with in the labs context? We might have the RFP ideas, as in the last previous slide. Potential partners may have things they want to have researched or tested before they put forward an RFP. It might be a challenge coming from SNET. Maybe SingularityNet says, hey, we have these tools here. It would be great if you would try this or try that with our technology. And then it will become really interesting. But what might also come from teams, from awarded teams. Maybe awarded teams have some idea, some suggestion, just some cool idea that they want to have tested. Then we'll have some filter to determine the priority and where we want to allocate budget and how much time and budget we want to spend on each idea, but we'll get there. Then the output of that labs might be an RFP. Might be might be helpful, supportive of an RFP. It might be deep funding tooling. It might be a proof of concept for some larger project. It might be an AI agent or an AI service on the platform. Or it might be some AI-powered solution that uses an AI agent or an AI service of the platform. So this is 2 years from now that labs could be a thriving community where there's a lot going on, a lot of input and a lot of things being created. The idea is that everybody who works in that lab will work for the same rate as any community member. So people will come together because they want to collaborate, they want to learn. There will be some payment, just like all of us here, but nothing above that. If something comes out of these labs that would require more dedicated research and become a project, then we'll create an RFP for that and we'll use the regular RFP route. So we'll start small. This is, I think, the last slide. We'll start with circle requests. So we hope, so this is your cue to start thinking about what kind of tool that we could develop ourselves would make my life or the life of our circle easier. And yeah, think about it, and we'll give you an opportunity to bring your ideas, probably in the next session. What we're already working on today are AI review assistants, AI-based filtering, and the voting methods. I mentioned them already. So this is also a way to bundle existing initiatives. And to be very honest, I also hope that by creating this labs environment, these things will get some more push. I feel right now these things are floating around, but there's nobody who has them as their first priority. But by putting them in the labs and maybe also allow other people to work on it, for whom this will be the first priority, we can give some more urgency and speed to these kind of experiments. Yeah, and hopefully we'll get some useful tooling out of that. So I think that was my question. Yeah, so what we need to think about is the filter. How do we, if we get more and more and more ideas from all these sources, we can't do everything probably. So we'll need to have some filter in place. But with this whole crisp selection process, we'll get inspired and we'll learn how to filter good ideas. And maybe we can apply those learnings then also to this lab situation later on. We have to start somewhere, so we'll start small, but as always, the vision is very big. I think that's it for now for my presentation. Any questions? Rafael?
Yeah, I do have some questions. I don't know if I'm the first one or not, hopefully. Yeah, so just a general question. Is there any criteria to get into the labs? Is it open? Anyone can participate? Are we looking for any specific skill sets? How is that going to be?
I don't know. We have to figure all of that out. So we have now a number of people that volunteer to work on these AI-driven review processes. So what we will do probably is to do another check if these people actually still have time for it, and because it's been a while and doesn't seem to be too much progress, to be honest. And then we'll figure if we need some strengthening there, some other people there. So we'll start with these existing projects, but then the next step will be that we will collect ideas from all of you in a separate session. Rafael and Rama will be in charge of that. Yeah, and then it depends on how many ideas and how useful these ideas are. If there are 10 great ideas, yeah, we'll find 10 people, or no, 30 people to work on them. And we'll figure out if we can get a budget for that or some way. So we'll just start doing that. And then we'll also see what kind of people we need. The examples that I gave here are AI driven. That's also the idea that it should be AI driven, but yeah, we could also maybe we need to experiment on a kind of process or something else that requires different expertise, and then we'll find the people that fit that. So one part of me thinks this would be great for some people in the review circle, some capable people there that don't have enough work on their hands right now, that they can be really useful in our community in a meaningful way. But at the same time, it's open for everybody in the circles and even outside of that. But yeah, I had these steps in mind, or I have this beginning, this first step and the last step, how we go from here to there and what are the intermediate steps and in what velocity we will do that, I don't know yet.
Okay, so just as a follow-up, and then I'll wrap it up and leave it to Vanny. So basically, the labs members have kind of the same relationship as circle members with deep funding, right? So they won't be hired members and they won't be freelancers. They'll be like a semi-volunteer situation with the same $10 per hour rate, something like that.
Yeah, I think so. Rama will be leading the labs as one person, but he comes from product. He's contracted part-time. But therefore, I also want to have somebody else there, another coordinator who comes more from the community side, maybe even award a team member or have three. One award a team member, one from the all circles and one from product, and have the three coordinates. By the way, I also intend to be involved in this. I think working with these experiments and maybe throwing in an idea once in a while and see what comes out. Yeah, I think that would be fun and exciting. So there are a lot of things we don't know. We'll have to figure it out. Technically, like I said in the beginning or halfway, it's a circle for administrative purposes, but maybe it's a different kind of circle than other circles. I expect over time there will be kind of a core group that will be leading it and coordinating it, but there will be a wider group of people going in and out whenever they have time or whenever we need a certain expertise for a certain amount of time. That is my vision, I would say.
So just as a final question that I got just now from your explanation, so how do the labs differ that much, or a project within the labs differs that much from like a working group or a work group? What is the difference?
The difference with, so I would say well, actually, that's a good point. Probably this will start as a work group. Because we are just getting started, we need to make the template with the documents, the purpose and the time. So maybe we'll start it as a work group, and then we'll say in 2 or 3 months, we expect this to be a circle, and then we'll have a more, then these questions, for instance, might be already better answered.
Right, thank you.
If I may answer, Rafael here as well, the difference in between a lab, the lab initiative that we are building, and a work group is work group has a specific project, right? So it can be one of the many projects that we are going to have in the lab. So this is exactly what we are doing. When we started with the AI review assistant, it was one project. Therefore, a work group was working on it. Now with the lab, we are concatenating all these projects that are here and there, putting under the same umbrella for the sake of, well, better traction and control, and having things and tooling at the same place. So the difference in between a work group and the lab, it's exactly because we are going to have the same minds working in a lot of work, in a lot of projects, which otherwise would be only one work group.
So it's like aggregating work groups into like a common control or leadership?
With a process to get to that, to develop that project, right? It's from the ideation itself until the end. Otherwise, work groups would be like, as the AI review assistant was, okay, we need this, we need artificial intelligence help and supporting reviewers, so let's create it. But now we have a process, and we might have a lot of projects, including, for instance, we can say here, hey, let's experiment with decentralization. It not necessarily would be on AI, right? This before would come as a specific work group. Now we have the lab for doing this. The work groups are still being needed, and they will be there, but not necessarily as a lab, because it's not an experimentation. We have, for instance, the onboarding process that we are automating. We have a work group for that. This is not a lab thing. This is a work group to a specific need that we are developing. So
if I may
it's
add
a
a little
nuance.
bit to that. Rafa, can I add something to that? I think one more difference to the between the lab and the working group is prototyping. So an environment where people can actually, test out the process. People can actually test out the solution. As Jen showed in the slide, you're going to realize that there's ASI Learn, ASI Create. The idea is to not only have this platform give us sort of test cases and things like that we can build on top of, but enable to test out to really prototype. If it's a process, prototype the process and see what effect it can have on a larger community, or if it's a product, what effect it can have to the larger community as well. right? So really prototyping and then being able to know if it's scalable or it's not. So when an idea comes from that lab, it comes out almost ready to scale, or it's just not a feasible one and we have to let it go.
Okay, so
does that make sense?
Yeah, in some ways, although I think technically we could also, if we had the right skill sets in a work group, it could also lead to a prototype if we organize it. But I guess what you're saying is like a work group could like think and define an idea, and then the labs would try to create a prototype for it, like something like that, right?
Yeah, I mean, if a work group, for example, came back and, for example, the work group that's currently determining how do we do, what's it called, idea filtration, right? They come back with, let's use the 3 LLMs and then let's figure out how the LLMs are going to interconnect. That can be fed into the lab, and the lab can then say, okay, this is how we can implement that, and this is how we can bring that to market. We can deploy that. Then it can be tested within the lab as well, right? And once we have a solid solution that can be scaled, it is brought back to the community.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. You're gonna say something, Rafael? I was going to get it to Vanny.
No, yeah.
Just get her end up.
No, yeah, let's
And I'm feeling bad. Vanny, are you there?
Yeah, sorry. I was just gonna say, yeah, it sounds really nice, Jan. What sort of timescale have you got in mind? And I think you mentioned like 2 to 3 months before this will be off the ground. And would there be a next step for somebody with an idea at the moment, or not really?
So in a way, we are continue. So am I on? Yeah, we are continuing something that has already started. So we already started with these 3 experiments, and we're just bundling it, and now we calling it labs. So it is ongoing. I said with the 3 months is that before it becomes a proper circle, like we go from work group to circle, that may take a while before we're saying this is now an official circle. That may take some time, but for the rest, I think it will be an evolving and emerging thing. So as I mentioned, I know how we want to start, which is with the 3 existing things, put some focus on it. What we also determined is that we will have a kind of workshop where we will ask all circles to come up with ideas and suggestions that you would like to have built. And I have a kind of vision currently about how I hope it will have evolved in let's say 2 years' time. But all the steps in the middle, and maybe I have an idea right now, but something that I think will be easy will be hard, and vice versa. So we'll figure out, we'll let it determine its own speed based on needs and enthusiasm of people that want to join.
And Vanya, as next steps, Rama, if you can go through the process of the workshop, would be nice.
Yeah, I can do that, but I wanted to see if there's any more question, and if I don't know if we have time, but if we do, definitely I can do that, Rafa. Rafael Cardoso?
The only question you have is the one in the chat, but it's kind of a question, kind of a remark, right? With expert contributors will have concerns about the attribution and appropriate remuneration of their IP ideas, and needs a clear incentive structure, reputation attribution, or token reward.
If you're concerned about your IP, then don't go to the labs. Very simple.
Yeah, simple.
The labs is about sharing, about collaborating, about experimenting, about having fun, about learning. It's not about protecting our IP.
So any other questions?
Yeah, can I just pick up on that? IP, okay. IP is actually open source, Jan. Okay. It's about the investment that people have with their expertise. Okay. All I'm hearing is come along, contribute your expertise. We haven't figured out anything. It's partly due or mostly due to your vision, Jan. So that's really the assurance that people who want to contribute expert time and contribution. It seems very internalized to this group as well, because the filtering has all been done by basically in-group selection and then established by a kind of small committee, as far as I can see. So this kind of, happy, oh, let's all open, doesn't really ring true from the presentation. That's just my feeling.
I find it a little bit disappointing that we're trying to do something new here, that we're trying to onboard people, we're trying to build a community, even paying people for learning and experimenting, and that the feedback that you're giving is, well, it's just a small group of people. What do we get out of it? Do we get paid for the IP? I would like to approach it from a different side. We are paying people to learn. We are bringing people together. There are a lot of things we haven't found out, so we'll do that together. If you would have preferred a blueprint where every step was completely figured out and how we want to do it and how we are making decisions, etc. Yeah, I think that would actually give less influence of the community just by bringing it out in this very early stage. I'm inviting you and the community to think with us and to help with us and to build with us instead of detailing it completely and then putting it out and then saying, well, this is how it is. So the fact that we haven't defined all of that, I don't see that as a weakness. I see that as a strength.
Yeah, if I may add to that, I absolutely agree with you. It is a strength because I think the perception here is that there's a request for expert contribution without reward, but that's not the request here. The request is a collaboration. It's an environment to enable everyone to sort of think together and to build together towards something that is fully open source, right? It's to benefit a larger set of community, which is the human community. So it's not necessarily you contribute your expertise and it is taken and then productized and turned into something that you don't have a part of. It is a collaboration together to build something. And while it's not fully defined, the purpose is to define it together. Because when we define it together, we are able to all contribute something that's even larger than ourselves.
Hi, Steven. Hope your question is answered. Okay. Yeah. Please, any other questions?
Feedback hasn't been rejected or dismissed. It's well received.
Well, sorry, no. I mean, this is my impression. That's your reaction to my impression has been, I'm sorry, I'm disappointed. I don't, what, your disappointment? No, you didn't. Feedback is about listening to what I said and understanding what I said. Ramas, you talked about open source. Open source, I've been in open source for many years. Open source is based on sustainability. It's not completely about remuneration. Open source is sustainable because people can commit their resources with some assurance that they're going to be listened to and not dictated to. Also, I wasn't talking about vagueness, Jan. It seems the problem partly I have with your presentation, which you haven't provided a link to, is that you provided all the detail, too much detail, not too little. It seems like baked into your proposal is centralized as a centralized committee, which is deciding, the vision. Okay, so I don't really see that. Doesn't feel very open source to me.
Well, I think that's where you are a bit wrong, Stephen. I'll tell you why. Because from Yen's presentation, what is stipulated is that we don't want to leave it to chance anymore. We've done that already. We've already left it to chance. We've basically started these initiatives and they've sort of sprung on their own. And because we've had no ownership, no one has led it and brought it to conclusion, or no one has led it to the point where it became something tangible. So now we are putting together a community, we are putting together an environment that is not completely built yet, but that allows you to come in and say, you know what, I want to be part of this. And because I'm part of this, I get to contribute towards that open source. So as you mentioned, there's no sort of lock into the committee that gets to decide. That community is not even defined yet. So your perspective is absolutely wrong, and maybe that's what you receive from the slide. And if that is the perception, then I think you have
Yeah,
your
right.
opinion and you are entitled to it.
Yeah, well,
But that's not the intended intention.
I'm a newcomer, right? Or I'm not a newcomer particularly overall, but to this initiative and to this environment I am. And what's the first message I receive? Your feedback is disappointing. You're wrong. Okay. Where is the listening? Where's the balance? If this is like what it's going to be like, it doesn't seem like a recipe for
Stephen,
operational communication.
I like to say something to that, right? I like to say something to that. I hear you clearly, and I hear you clearly. When Yen say he's disappointed, I'll tell you why I echo his perspective wholeheartedly. And I'm going to tell you why that is. Because there is an environment, just like you are approaching it as an offense for someone to tell you that your feedback was disappointing. Think of it as an environment where we are trying to build something, and your first perception and your first feedback is, well, where's my compensation for an idea that hasn't even been provided? The perception of a person that's trying to do something, that's trying to create something, is to have it be accepted first and then added onto. That is how we build an open source community. That is how we build a community as a whole. Your approach was not that. Your approach was, well, look, I'm looking at what you're telling me here,
Ramas, you're
and
completely misinterpreting.
it seems like it's not fair. And that's the point that he was trying to make. It is
completely
not
misinterpreted.
that.
I didn't say remuneration only. I also talked about compensation in terms of reputation. Okay. I'm not talking primarily about, oh, will I get paid for this? I'm talking about, will there be a recognition of participation? You can't even recognize what I actually said. So that's not a very good assurance, is it? I'm the
No,
one
it's
who's
not.
disappointed.
It's not. But you see how you just explain yourself, and I heard you because I understood that. Guess what? I misunderstood the same way you may have misunderstood what he said. But you are not giving room for that second level of discussion, are you? Because right away you go, well, if this place is going to be that way, then what is this place? That's the point I'm trying to make to you. There's a conversation to be had where you just spoke and I heard you, right? And when I replied what you said, well, you didn't understand me, and you explained it and I understood it. A conversation is supposed to be a two-way thing. But when you come at it from a perspective of a blockade already, where you go, well, if this place is like that, you said a feedback is supposed to be a gift. If a feedback is a gift and the person tells you, well, your feedback was not valid, then receive it as a gift as well. Isn't
No,
it
you
a two-way
haven't.
street?
No, I'm sorry. You didn't hear what I said. You just admitted that you didn't hear what I said, and you haven't followed up on what I said. What I said is that I'm concerned about the assurance of contribution for a long-term commitment for something that will end in a sustainable open source solution. Yeah, that's what I'm interested
Absolutely.
in. Now, remuneration
Yeah.
may be a part of that. Reputation attribution certainly is a part of that. So that's integral to open source. I just don't feel
Absolutely.
there's an understanding of this coming from you two.
Oh,
It
no.
seems, where is the opportunity for this conversation? It seems like every time I say something, you're very disappointed or I'm
No, I am
misunderstanding
not
something.
disappointed at all. Stephen, don't take it that way. I want it to be a conversation. My feedback to you is very simple. Come to the community. Let's join the labs and let's contribute together and let's have a conversation. The perception I was trying to make to you is that I hear you clearly, and your point is valid. Remuneration, absolutely. When I say remuneration and compensation, I don't necessarily mean that either. I also mean everything that you mean. It can be in reputation, it can be in different format. But what I'm saying is let's take the conversation to an environment where we can have it, where it is rather you are basically putting together a format together. We are basically coming up with a way that this can work for everyone that is intended to work for, right? And that may include remuneration, that may include other things. We don't know that yet. And to Jan's point, this is the part where he's saying it's not figured out yet. Right now, everything is a blank slate. It's everywhere. We don't know what it's going to be yet. We just know that we want to do this thing, and we welcome the community. We welcome people like yourself to sort of help us shape it and guide it to become something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
well,
we have a very diverse community. We have a very simple payment method, $10 an hour for everybody. There are PhDs from high-paid areas in the world, like the US. There are people for who this is ridiculous. There are people coming from low-wage countries for which that is actually a good deal, and it brings diversity. We have both kinds of people there. And I hope that will happen also in the labs, that we'll have diversity and people that come there with different motives and different reasons. But I do hope it will be a place that will bring people together and that will bring joy and that will bring fun and that we have fun creating things together. And not think first place about what will be in it for me, what will I get out
yeah,
of
there you go again, Jan. It wouldn't be.
it.
It would be much more fun if what I said wasn't jumped on and characterized as what it's in it for me. You're doing it already there, Jan. Okay, so a fun environment might be one where, oh, we could have different perspectives, but no.
So I'm trying to build a perspective here. What I thought this was a really good thing that we were sharing. And I still think it's a very good thing that we're sharing. And I feel it's turning now into something that is being criticized before it's even started. And on the topic of remuneration, the thought did occur to me, and I actually mentioned it, that yeah, might work with reputation. Would be great if people could create reputation out of that. But that is something down the line, and it's not the first objective why we're doing it. The objective is because we think it's fun to build things together. And we want to bring people together, and we want people to learn, and all the rest, yeah, we'll figure out along the line. And I hope that most of you here also see this as a positive thing and see this as something to be enthusiastic about and something that we can celebrate rather than criticize from the first step onward.
Well, I will give it a chance, Jan, but there's a lot of the use of the royal we here, and there's a lot of trust that needs to be established. But certainly, while I will give it a go and interested in the collaboration.
Thank you, Stephen. I appreciate that, and let's continue the conversation, and looking forward to have your ideas on what kind of things you think we can collaborate on. Maybe this whole topic that we have been debating might be turned somehow into something we can use as an experiment and we can work on in this labs environment. All right. Let's close this conversation. I feel that I was a little bit tense already at the beginning of this presentation, not my usual self. So maybe that spilled over in this conversation. So if that's the case, my apologies. Nothing to do with you or the conversation at hand. Do we still have time for Oscar?
Yeah, I think time is fast spent. We only have like 13 minutes, which I don't think he could use that to elaborate on his analysis. Oscar,
Hello.
please answer for yourself. Can you still make with the time we have?
No, I don't think it's enough time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, since I have time for myself, I think this is a good time. Honestly, I don't think there is tension here. I think all of us, we are cool. So, yeah, we've come to the end of today's Open All Hands. And before I forget, we need everybody to follow Deep Funding on all social media platforms. So we have YouTube, we have Twitter, we have LinkedIn and Telegram. It's good to follow these platforms and see the new things that are happening. Most of the time we post it there, so you get to see. And for this video or this meeting, it will be posted on the YouTube. So you could interact with us there, you could share, put in your comments, like, then we continue engaging from there, okay? So, without taking much time, I think it's a bye-bye for now. Or do anyone has anything interesting to share?
No, just one last thing for everyone here. Don't miss the next Open All Hands. We'll have Oscar presenting. It was really exciting, but now will come in the next one. And I think it was nice. It was important discussions, important questions, and that's what we want, participation. So if you haven't participated yet, we hope to hear your voice in the next session. And thank you to everyone who participated here today. And all opinions are welcome. And I think this discussion was very, very nice. That's what we want. We don't want just yeses. We want everyone to share their honest feelings. That being said, over to you, Priscilla, and please close it out.
Yeah. Bye, guys. I want to see people saying bye. Bye.